My name is Boris Doubrov, and I'm a director of a small software development company called Duff, and here I represent a VeraPDF consortium. This is a consortium formed by a number of partners and led by Open Preservation Foundation, a British company, and specifically for one European project called PREFORMA. So these are keywords, and I now proceed further through the slides. So what is VeraPDF? That's about building a definitive PDF-A validator. And as I mentioned, this is the European Union PREFORMA project. Yeah, well, the names are here. But before I proceed, just one question. Have you ever tried inventing a wheel? And have you ever tried doing this when you know that you are inventing a wheel? And this is about what I felt in the beginning when I heard, well, what do we need to do? Just yet another PDF-A validator. There are, well, a number of available commercial and open source validators on the market. What's wrong with them? So why would European Union want to have yet another one and developed more or less from scratch? I'll come to this later. And what is the final goal? And now we understand the final goals of the project much better, and it's not just about PDF validator as it is. So the key word here is a definitive, and this means that this would need to be something everybody else would agree that this is the thing. And this makes, well, this just makes the thing completely different. These are, well, I'll briefly skim through the slides. And you clearly, well, for those who know Duff Johnson, you clearly recognize his touch here. So why PDF-A? Well, we are celebrating 10 years of PDF Association, which started as a PDF-A competence center. So I guess we all understand why PDF-A. It is just important to mention that in this particular project, PDF-A came not from PDF Association and not from PDF world, but from the world of archivists and librarians, so essentially from national libraries, because they became interested in using PDF-A as universal electronic archiving format, and they've got their own requirements on how to validate PDF-A documents. And actually, this is the starting project, the starting point of this European initiative. So we know that PDF is far more superior to TIFF, and we heard a number of talks already mentioning this here. And well, we all know the advantage of PDF-A as a preservation format, so I'm not going to dwell into this further on. And yes, well, we all know that PDF-A is just perfect for sharing, authenticating, so it supports digital signatures. It is high quality, vector graphics, and so everything we need to keep the documents for how many years? Who knows? Maybe for hundreds. Why does validating PDF-A matter? Well, again, an naive answer would be, well, if the requirement is to store documents as PDF-A format, then you would need to know that this is a valid PDF-A document if you receive it from some third party, and that's the answer. The more delicate question is, how do you know that your validation software is correct? And this is yet another very important question. Well, what normally would most of us do when we are asked whether this PDF A document is if this PDF document claiming to be PDF A is really PDF A, and me myself, I would open Adobe Acrobat, click to verify the claim, and see the green or red line saying yes, it's a valid PDF A, no, it's not a valid PDF A, and yet librarians are not satisfied with this. Why? In part because Adobe Acrobat is a commercial product, and I am not sure if it runs on Unix systems. Most of librarians would use on their high-level systems, and they would not be able to buy this amount of licenses required per each national library. That's simply way too expensive, and this archival world is, well, librarian world is not exactly like a banking world where you have much more money floating around. Yes, so this is why VeraPDF. So there is no so much revenue in validation per se. So what's required here is an open source solution. And this is the #1 requirement for this European project. So please deliver an open source solution that will do the validation everybody else would accept. Open source, yeah, this makes life already much more difficult. There are a few open source solutions available, and we'll have a talk on one of them right after this one. Yet it supports just PDF A1B, while the librarians want to have validation of all versions and all flavors, all levels of PDF A. So again, our task looked like we take an existing open source tool, like PDF Box, for example. We just extend it, adapt it, and get the result. But again, the answer was no. That's not the way to proceed. For two reasons. One of them, the licensing requirements for the project and licensing requirements coming from the European Union is not something easy to negotiate. Requires that everything is delivered under a dual license. First, GPL version 3, General Public License version 3, so they're very, very specific. And second, Mozilla Public License version 2, which allows commercial use of this open source solution. So essentially what is delivered has to be maintained in a completely open fashion due to GPL v3 license, but still can be used in commercial solutions due to Mozilla Public License version 2. And no word about compatibility, no word about, say, other kinds of open source licenses which exist in this world. No, just this two. And for example, PDF Box, the tool we had in mind initially, comes under Apache license. Good, nice open source license, but not GPL v3. Compatible, but no. Everything has to be licensed under GPL v3, not just compatibility, nothing like that. Code from scratch. That's the goal. Second reason was that when we started discussing this in PDF community, in particular, very soon after the project was, at least we entered into phase 1 of this project, which was feasibility study, just feasibility study. The technical work group was launched called VeraPDF, and it combined a number of people from this room and some others who are not present on these PDF days, but all having the same passion for PDF document and some expertise for PDFA validation. It became relevant that it became clear that in order to speak the same language and in order to be clear what really is validated and how to trace the results, a notion of a model, a validation model, a notion of a validation profile which clearly identifies all rules and all checks done is a must. There is no way to proceed without such documentation clearly stating what exactly is validated. And well, as PDF Box didn't have this notion, so it became clear to us that yes, that's our job to develop everything more or less from scratch. Of course, well, definitive still becomes a challenge because this is the only thing to guarantee the interoperability. Everybody agrees that this is the thing. Well, who wants to have this validator to be developed? Well, I'm glad Duff put ISO committee and PDF station members as a first line here. And of course, all PDF software developers is generating PDF A documents would want to have something to double check that their PDF A documents are correct. Well, ECM, DMS, CCM, industry product managers would want to be sure that everything is correct. Digital preservation practitioners, this is where we hide national libraries here. And of course, governments, procurement organizations, IT researchers, and finally end users who would be able to check PDFA conformance just in a web-based validator on the site VeraPDF.org. These are business cases how this can be used to really drive the businesses. I think I'll just quickly go through this. So reduced operational risks, more interoperable software, enabling easier and more feature-rich document sharing, process automation, archival, and enhanced accessibility. That's all really important here, and this is what we are aiming. And for PDF technology developers, well, reduce support costs for sure, but also reduce software development costs. So open source code will be available to check the things. So nobody would need to do it again, we hope. And this is finally led to the creation of a VeraPDF consortium. As I mentioned already, the lead organization is Open Preservation Foundation, combining a number of various libraries and other preservation institutions and providing technical support to them. Digital Preservation Coalition, it's a broader organization. Keep Solutions is a particular technical software development company doing integration of various software for archivists and digital libraries. These all come from digital preservation community. And on the other side, we've got PDF technology industry, led by PDF Association and members of its PDF validation technical work group, represented in particular by Duff Johnson. And we were glad and honored to be chosen as architects of the solution to be developed, so we are lead developers of the solution. Why PDFA validation is so special? Well, first of all, it relies on an enormous amount of technical documentation. Some of you might have read it once or twice or even 3 times and still would need to go back each time any particular question arises. So it relies on 2 different versions of PDF specifications, PDF 1.4 and PDF ISO 32000. Each of them is about 1,000 pages long. Well, they're somewhat similar, but this makes the situation even worse because the differences is what makes life more difficult then. PDF itself, PDF-A specific, its standard itself comes in 3 versions. We know that there is version 1, version 2, version 3. Each of them, well, starting from 2 and 3, comes in 3 levels, A, U, and B. Plus, there are 2 technical corrigenda for PDF A1, which also is kind of a, well, we have always to take care of this and double check if certain rules from PDF A1 specification were overridden by this technical corrigenda. Well, and as I mentioned already, PDF-A standard aims for really long-term preservation, and this means that we need much more formal analysis of the requirements. And well, me personally, I come from mathematical background, and what I would ideally want to have is some kind of precision mathematicians tend to use in proofs, and which is of course not available in practical documentation. And this is what is going on during the discussions. So a way to start, and a way to start is really obvious. So we just have to generate a number of test files that cover more or less all 3 PDF-A versions, and which would then be a topic for discussion among specialists. And as soon as we agree on whether these test files are indeed conforming PDF-A files, the rest, I mean the implementation of the validation itself, becomes more or less straightforward development work. So what we've got so far, we've got some very important initial steps in this direction. So these are in Sartre and Bovary and recent BE4 test suites. Altogether, they have combined 323 test atomic self-documented files. So 323 test files. How many would we need in total? So our initial count says, well, at least 500. I'm pretty sure, well, it was just 2 weeks ago. Now we know that that's still too little. Many more test files are required to cover all border cases or some specific cases where the specifications allow several interpretations. And of course, the real world cases, and we all understand that, well, in the end, it's not just science or scientific work, it's something that has to be practical, and we have to be careful declaring that this or that rule must be always satisfied. If you are not accurate enough, we might end up having 90% of PDF-A files currently considered as valid to be invalidated, and this is definitely not our goal. And just for comparison, well, XML format, I mean core XML format, just 38 pages on the W3 consortium website, still comes with about 600 test files. And we speak here about several thousands of documentation, well, of course, this is PDF documentation combined. So if we were speaking today about PDF validation, not just PDF-A validation, this would probably mean that we need, well, tens of thousands of test files. We are lucky to restrict ourselves only to PDF-A, and this is, and I'll explain how we drew the border here. So just to explain you, the creation of PDF files is already an ongoing process. And how it all works, first of all, our QA engineers read carefully every sentence inside PDF-A specifications, and this is a very typical, easy one. That's a requirement on string objects, that hexadecimal string shall contain an even number of known white space characters, each in range of 9 to 0, A to F, capital, or A to F, lowercase. There is still a word non-white space characters, so we go deeper into the clarification and see that a white space is defined as one of those. And actually this particular thing was already a subject of discussions. We were lately discussing whether a null character is considered as white space or not white space. And still that's relevant because some PDF files might not be accurate enough to have this. So we clearly have test cases here. So we might come up with, in files which are invalid PDFA, so they contain odd number of characters, hexadecimal characters. Then there might be non-white space characters outside the allowed range, so non-hexadecimal digits. And plus, we have to make sure that every other white space character is allowed. So we have to come up with a test case which checks, generates a positive set of positive test files. So these are test cases, and the list of the draft of these test cases is already it was sent to technical workgroup and should be available through pdfa.org website. It's still in a closed stage. Then we do go and create the corresponding test files. So our key engineers go and create, well, in this particular case, 3 test files. Then we all manage, it's all managed through GitHub, and it's already open source. So it goes to an open source repository. Then somebody from, like me, myself, go and double check that everything was correctly created. And then it's merged to, well, I'm getting a bit more technical in terms of development. This will merge the test files into a master branch. And actually, this is the exact URL where this all is going on right now. Then, that's just the start. Because this was just our point of view on the thing. And as we are looking for a consolidated opinion, so we go to we present everything on the validation technical work group. I sent these test files to a mailing list, combine the feedback. Then we meet now once a month during the web calls, and we see whether everybody agrees. And well, the very first such meeting happened 2 weeks ago, and there were quite a number of technical discussions with disagreements, and we need to go back and update our test files, create new ones, and repeat the procedure. So this is a kind of a process we are going on, which is going on. And the milestone we are approaching soon is July 15, where we would need to present the release candidate for the enhanced PDFA1B corpus. So it's just the extension of a starter test. Well, examples, what's discussed. One of the latest discussions we are having, what to do with private data. So does it need to be validated for implementation limits for this hexadecimal string requirement? So it's just private data which has to be kept in private area, and nobody cares what's going on in these things. Well, which glyphs we have to verify, what is the length of the name, which is a subject of implementation limits. Do we need to care about escape sequences? Do we consider it after we apply UTF-8 encoding? These are all typical questions we are discussing during the meetings. And this all shows that the specifications are not precise enough, and we need much more further work to bring it to the stage where everything is really accepted by everything is understood completely, and then, so to say, people may vote and decide whether they consider this is correct or not incorrect. Another important point is that PDFA thus relies on a number of other formats, like font formats, ICC profiles, CMAPs, XMP metadata, of course, plus digital signatures, certificates embedded into the files. What happens if these things are invalid or broken? That's a very delicate question. So our current position is that we do validate what's explicitly required by PDFA Association, but we are looking to further collaboration with experts from relevant technologies to go through the validation of these embedded formats. And the architecture of the solution does allow a plugin system so that anybody else can come up, develop a third-party plugin which would additionally run a validation for embedded formats, specific embedded formats. Well, now we have to come up with a language we all understand, and we have to speak not Java, not C++, but we have to speak something which has a common understanding between all of us. And so we have to come up, we invented, well, based on a number of discussions and hints from PDF Station, we came up with the so-called validation model, which just defines the objects we would want to validate, object types, and the properties they have, plus the validation rules are just Boolean conditions. This is nothing new, so this is what many commercial validators do themselves, so it's not something new, but the only difference is, again, that it's on all open source. So our model is described in an open source fashion, and all validation rules are stated in an open source fashion, so everybody can look and inspect them. And rules are combined into validation profiles and signed. So that as soon as it's done, there is no doubt that we are really doing the validation we wanted to have. So this is just an illustration, and it's a bit outdated because this is still a changing thing. This shows what is a model. So it's a model of a PDF document. This is an abstraction. This somewhat resembles the notions we see in Adobe PDF library, but also in some other PDF libraries. These are the types for which PDFA has certain requirements. So it's not the comprehensive structure of PDF document, and it's not Java. It's just an abstract model with certain, where each type has some properties we might check, plus some types are linked to other types. A document contains pages, a page contains bounding box or metadata, and these are the links which will be followed through the validation process. So this all gives us a model of the thing we validate. By the way, similar model can be created for any other data format, for a TIFF image, for a digital signature, for just a font file. So this is a generic thing which is described in a specially invented language. Just giving you a hint how this language looks like. It's, again, not a specific programming language. It's just something most of those who did some software development can easily read and understand. So it's objects, or object types. One type extends another type. They have properties, they have links. That's it. So it's a very limited syntax. Nothing more complex. That's all we need to have in order to run real validation work. This is an open source thing describing what is a subject for validation rules. And as you see here, it covers basic PDF objects like arrays, but also operators and content stream, and potentially any other object types we might need to have requirements on. So it's the aim of this model is, I'm repeating this again, is not to code or to represent a complete PDF specification. It's just a way to formalize the requirements of PDFA. Because, like COS array, it's an abstract reflection of a PDF array. And it has a condition that the size of array shall be not greater than something like 8,191, and this needs to be validated. So it has a property size. So this is an XML syntax for validation rules. This is exactly what builds the validation profile. And what's important here, so we have a test which is exactly the condition which has to be verified for COS array, for array. So its size has to be less than 8192. Plus, in addition, it says us all other metadata, such as what is an error message, what is a description, what specifications is this clause is based on. And in this particular case, these are two specifications. One of them is PDFA1, and another one is PDF reference 1.4. There might be three or more, because, well, some clauses have to be decoded into a chain. And we want to be precise here. And this is what everybody hopefully will be able to understand and confirm, that yes, that's a correct understanding of what's required, and we agree that this is what PDFA document has to specify. Well, when it comes to a specific PDF library that parses PDF document, PDF parser implementation, that's just something that implements the model. That something that fills in the particular values of these properties in this abstract model. And as I mentioned already, the requirements of PREFORMA to deliver everything under GPLv3 plus NPLv2. Again, to move faster and to have something people might try to test, we agreed with PREFORMA in particular that as a prototype, we are allowed to use PDF box. So that's a relief for us, because this means we don't need to code, at least as the initial stage of the implementation, we don't need to start with basic PDF parser. We just can use the existing library, which is open source, but we still need to come up with a greenfield implementation of yet another PDF parser later on. We hope we won't introduce many new errors in there. But both versions will be available for public, but the final delivery will include, for PREFORMA, will be based on greenfield implementation. Sorry. Well, development processes. It's just to show that we use all standard approaches, latest know-hows for open source development. These are the keywords here. So GitHub for a repository of both code and test report. GitHub.com/VeraPDF, very easy. You can go there and it's open source, so no registration for nobody. So you can go and see what's going on there. Latest commits, all history. Well, and of course, everything that might help us to keep the quality of the software, meaning there is a Travis that manages continuous build, so every commit results in a build. Then Jenkins manages integration tests, so at the moment it runs all validation profiles and test files we've got to check that everything is not broken. Plus Sonar that monitors code quality and says us, again in an automated way, that things might have been coded incorrectly. Well, I'm glad to tell you that a minimal thing which already runs and does something, not much though, is already available. And everybody can go and try it. You can do, if you're a developer, you can go clone Java repository yourself, build everything through Maven builds, run the client. There is a already initial set of validation profiles, still atomic, containing just a single test, plus a number of test files available. And this is how it looks like. So if you like, you can go to download section of a VeraPDF.org website and see a zip archive you can download, double click on a script that started the thing and see the result. See this nice GUI. Well, of course, very, very, very limited, and it will be enhanced on the way, but already working. Well, report generation, we are running out of time, so I'll skip some less critical things. Report generation is done again in XML. There is not much choice here because we again aim for open source standard. Error messages are defined in validation profiles, so whoever tries to implement the same validation profiles in the same model, and by the way, that just can't be implemented in any other language other than, we're using Java for this, but well, if somebody else wants a different implementation, just come up with your own parser of a PDF file plus probably another 100 lines of code to implement our generic validation model. And so the result will be identical because there is no ambiguity here in defining what the report should contain in the end. And of course, we want to have all standard things like conversion to HTML via XSLT, plus a conversion to PDFs, again using some open source techniques. That's done via Apache FOP tool. Plus localization, again, open source community have come up with all right solutions. Like there is a special XML-based Tamax syntax for translations. Again, widely supported by a number of open source and commercial tools. Other components which are important in this thing, in this project, and they all come as requirements from PREFORMA community, from PREFORMA project. So metadata fixer. So if PDF file doesn't claim to be PDFA, this doesn't mean we are not going to validate it. So we would try to validate, to check it against one of the standards the user might select, or we might try all three. And if it passes the validation, we might fix the metadata and mark it as a valid PDFA file. And on the contrary, if it doesn't pass the validation, we might remove the identification from the metadata. Policy checks. Some institutions might want to have additional requirements, like some of them might say that JPEG 2000 is not permitted in PDFA2 documents. So PDFA2 does allow JPEG 2000, but some might decide no, they don't want it. So these are additional checks which institutions might run on top of the PDFA validation, and that's done in two steps. So when we do validation, we also generate a certain PDF inventory or PDF features report, how it's called, where we say which images are used, what are the bounding boxes of pages, what are the fonts, and that's all stored in predefined XML format, so that further on all institutions may use again yet another open source technology called schematron to check if certain keys are present or not present in this XML format. Plus plugin infrastructure. That's, again, interoperability is an important issue, and in 2 days we are having a meeting with 2 other members of PREFORMA project who are doing the same thing, well, validation of still images and audiovisual data, so codecs and video codecs and stuff like that. And as an advantage, we hope that somebody would do image validation for us. Timeline. This is where we are. So it all started. It all started back in February, or in November 2014 with phase 1, which was called Feasibility Study. We had to compete with another company. So European Union had a very specific rules. So feasibility studies done in parallel by 2 companies, and who does it better proceeds to the next stage. So we were lucky to win this competition, and we are now in phase 2 called implementation, which started 1.5 months ago. So we are glad to have first minimal viable product released, and this is where our real work starts, coding specific rules and checks, and creating test files to proceed with the discussions with the community. And well, actually, the end of phase 2 is the end of 2016. By this time, I do hope we'll be able to reach the consensus among all vendors who are interested in PDFA validation and release something which would satisfy everybody's requirements. And in 2017, PREFORMA will run acceptance tests, which would hopefully lead to a final delivery. So, how to get involved? That's an open source project, and we would be very happy for your participation as well, joining PDF Association, starting to participate in PDF validation technical working group. For this, you just need to subscribe to the mailing list as a starting point, VeraPDF tag at PDF mailing list pdfa.org, I think. You can go directly to GitHub and inspect test files. You can send us your test files if you think they contradict to what is commonly accepted. We'd be glad to inspect them, discuss them, and try to come up with a resolution. Of course, you are welcome to compile the code, report any issues. And there were people already who were reporting issues not with the code, but with test files directly on GitHub. So it doesn't require anything special. Just one click and saying, I think this is incorrect. Then, of course, developing plugins for validating embedded data. And thinking how you would benefit from using this final open source product. Yep. That's it. Questions? Yeah?
Yeah, it's under the GPL
Yep.
version 3 license, right? That means if you use this open source, you have to disclose your source code too. That is the GPL.
Yeah, that's GPL v3 does require this. This is right. But as I mentioned, the final solution will be delivered under dual license. So there will be two versions of the software under two different licenses. GPL v3, which does indeed require opening any code that uses this library. Plus, in addition, there will be another delivery under Mozilla public license version 2. And this code does not require that you open your commercial code if you start using this library. So actually, there might be a question why we would need two if one is more restrictive than another. The condition, so this was a legal opinion from some of the lawyers dealing with open source licenses. Having open GPL v3 license guarantees a longer life timeline, well, longer stability of code, while MPL v3 does open it for commercial use. Yes?
Looks like a great thing there. In the situation when Acrobat disagrees with your definitive validation, how do you think that will be resolved?
Good question. So it's not us. Well, I'm creating this PDF validation technical work group. We somehow lifted the responsibility for answering this question from us themselves to PDF Association, in part, to technical experts of PDF Association. And Adobe is a part of this technical work group as well. So it's a discussion, first of all, among specialists, common conclusion. We hope that, well, up to now, we were able to decide on various disputes without really starting to vote. And well, I do hope that if Adobe representatives agree that this is an incorrect implementation of Adobe, they would fix it in the next version.
Speaking on behalf of one of the implementers, and kind of in the coding department of Adobe for the purpose of PDFA validation, so to speak, if I may, there has been a habit already since vendors started implementing PDFA validation technology, going back to 2006, actually, in the foundation of the PDF installation of the PDFA Competence Center. And despite the fact some of us have been fierce competitors and still are in this marketplace, we managed to talk to each other. And you will have noticed that we keep talking, even in the last few years when there have not been that many discrepancies anymore between the more professional PDFA validators. And this habit, I assume, will just continue. I can guarantee it to continue on my behalf. I expect it to continue on behalf of other validation vendors like Bernd Dude and Intarsis and Hans Berfus must be somewhere. Yeah, so the usual suspects, so to speak. And it may take a little bit of time for discussing this and for resolving it on a technical level, because there might be the occasional challenge where somebody has to adjust their architecture slightly. But ultimately, and it might even be as soon as by the end of the VeraPDF implementation phase, end of 2016, the inter-instrument agreement is what I tend to call it. Should be pretty good between the professional validators, the commercial validators, and the VeraPDF validation results. And I think in most cases there will be some fine-tuning. It shouldn't be too dramatic, but there will be work for everybody involved, I guess. And I'm pretty optimistic. So I don't think it's a major obstacle we're looking at.
Yeah. Thank you, Olaf. This really makes us optimistic as well.
Don't quote me.
Yeah.
No, you can't.
Well,
You're
yeah, it's, it's on the record, I'm afraid. Any other questions?
The quote expires end of this week.
It's more maybe comment on the question. It's lots of people are here from the vendor's point of view, but my background is more in archives and providing archiving services, and you have to understand the difference. For example, the reason why you have to have open source in a long-term preservation is that if you like to preserve something 100 years, you have to have the codes. It's not possible to do that if the company is leaving the market or bankrupting or something like that. That is the reason why the open source is important. And I think that this is also, I know quite many of the guys who have been involved in this PREFORMA project, and they have had different kind of experiences in validating PDF-A files. And I think that this might be the reason why this project has been started to do concentrate from the big part of PDF-A validation. Because it's a big disaster if you validate something and found out after 70 years that you cannot open those things you have reserved. So if they are not that kind of common understanding, you have to use not one, but at least two validator software to make it sure.
And
so that's all the best for the project, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. More questions? Okay. Thank you.